When you're ready. This time what I want you to do is just think about leaning over a ledge, just putting your toes over a ledge and just thinking about looking over that ledge and squeezing a tennis ball between your shoulder blades, okay? So just think about that. Very good. One more. Perfect.
Okay, so here's just a look at one of my athletes and a rugby player performing the Romanian deadlift. You can see a good angle of 90 degrees at the hip, a good spinal position, a slight bend in the knees, what we're looking for, bars in nice and close and head is in neutral. This is a good position for the RDL. In the next snapshot you'll be able to see as he goes into a greater hip flexion, there's some slight lumbar curvature. So first picture was at 90 degree of hip flexion and this one's at 60 degrees. So 90 degrees is a relatively good angle. So I did say to him after, just don't go as far down into the lift. As long as you feel tension in the hamstrings, just come back up. No point in overloading that lumbar spine. This is after I gave him a couple of cues of placing your toes over a ledge and just looking over that ledge and pinching a tennis ball between your shoulder blades. You can see here he gets a much better, he gets further down, 78 degrees of hip flexion and keeping that spine in a neutral position. And then again this snapshot shows as he goes further into 60 degrees of hip flexion he loses that spinal position again. So he did it for the first couple of reps just to an angle of where I wanted him to go, but then as the reps went on he just kept going lower and lower and back to his old ways. So this would be a motor control issue, so a skill issue. Here we have a snapshot of behind. So you can see his left hip is higher than his right hip and his left shoulder is lower than his right shoulder. This could be due to a couple of weeks ago he had a hip flexor injury. That's what I put this down to, so that's more of a capacity issue. And here again, after the cues I gave for pinching the tennis ball between his shoulder blades and looking over the ledge, his shoulders are equal, however his hip alignment is still off. So I would put that down to a capacity issue, which I have given him exercises for.
Same again, crest to the ceiling. Yeah. Crest. Good.
So here we have a look at another one of my athletes performing the back squat. You can see there's some slight lumbar curvature as he reaches the bottom of the lift, with 69 degrees of flexion at the hip and 68 degrees of flexion at the knee. There's some slight forward lean here as well, so I would put this down to a skill issue, so motor control, mainly due to his lack of experience with the back squat. Here we can see a slight issue, nothing alarming. The slightly lower left hip to his right hip. This is something that we can rectify over the coming weeks, and I would put this down to a capacity issue, so flexibility, mobility. I don't think this is a skill issue myself. In the next snapshot you'll see him performing the squat after I've given him a cue of getting the crest of his jersey to the ceiling. So you can see a nice flat spine, albeit with slightly sacrificed knee angle, but I was much happier with this spinal position, as it's a lot safer for him and myself. The next snapshot you can just see some slight inversion. This was evident throughout his lifts, so to rectify this, over the next couple of weeks we will be doing some banded squats and some mainly keeping it to the goblet squat, as it's a good place to start and he's relatively new to squatting, so I'll just progress from there. So with this athlete who was performing the RDL, we have more capacity issues rather than skill issues, mainly because of his hip injury a few weeks ago. So you could see it from behind more than anywhere else, and I suppose from the side with the lumbar curve, but from behind you could see that his right hip was slightly lower than his left. So with this athlete we are looking at some skill-based issues with regards to his motor control. So you can see a few issues without even any lines in the first video. Is the lumbar spine, as you got down, that took a few cues to get rid of. So over the next few weeks this is somewhere we'll work on through some different drills and exercises. So here's just a look at what I would say the capacity issues with the individual performing the RDL are. So basically this is the lower cross syndrome, so tight hip flexors and tight thoracolumbar extensors, I would say, is the problem. On one side basically the leg is shortened due to tightness in both these, compensating for his previous injury of the hip. As stated before, with this athlete, it's basically a skills issue, and I believe over the next few weeks we will rectify most of these issues with other exercises like the goblet squat, banded goblet squats, just not loading the spine and just keeping it simple for the next few weeks, and then look at getting into some proper